like to take you on a short journey. So if you could sit up straight, put both feet on the ground, put your hands on your knees, and close your eyes. I want you to think of the most awesome man you've ever met. The kind of guy that if you had a son, you'd be thinking, I hope my son grows up like that guy. Now ask yourself, why did you just think of that guy? What made him so awesome? Go ahead and open your eyes. So see, you already know what it means to be an awesome man. My question for you is, have you ever written that down? Shared it with your spouse or your son, said, this is what I think it means to be awesome. What do you think? If you haven't done it, I'd encourage you to try it out. Because I've been having this conversation with guys over the last several years, and I keep hearing these same three things. They say the awesome men in their life cared about them, spent time with them, coached them, invested in them. They say the awesome men in their lives had a set of principles that they stood for, they cared about, and they taught others. And they say that the awesome men in their lives had a fire in their belly for something. They were fired up about something. So people, principles, purpose seems pretty straightforward, right? But what do you think our culture says about what it means to be a man? I've been having this conversation too, and I get a different set of answers. People tell me, in our culture, you got to suck it up. You got to be a man. You got to keep your emotions inside. Don't ask for help. And then we wonder why the suicide rate for men is 3.5 times higher than it is for women. We tell our men and boys, you got to be tough, can't back down. And then we wonder why 80% of violent crime is committed by men. We tell men and boys, got to be good at sports if you want to be a man. And then we wonder why our young men deprioritize their studies and why girls get higher grades in every subject. We tell our men and boys, got to get a lot of girls if you want to be a man. And then we wonder why 1 in 6 women is the victim of an attempted or completed rape, and why 22% of men cheat on their wives. We tell our men and boys, got to make a lot of money, got to be a provider. And then we wonder why guys have so much trouble dating women that make more money than them. And lastly, we tell men and boys, got to get a man job, you want to be a man. And then we wonder why guys have so much trouble thriving in an economy where 6 of the 7 jobs that add the most new positions in the next 7 years are all dominated by women. These guys don't want to be teachers and nurses, they want man jobs. What happens when there are no man jobs? So don't get me wrong, men still have plenty of advantages. We need way more female CEOs. We need way more female politicians. We need sexual harassment to just stop, please. All right. But this disconnect between what we know awesome is, you just discovered it for yourselves. You know what awesome masculinity is. And our culture sends all this other stuff. It has real consequences. So you might be thinking, why is this random dude talking to me about man stuff? Like, I'm not a gender expert. I'm just a guy trying to stay married. Because this story all begins with this rock star alpha female from Mitchell, South Dakota. Her name's Emily, and she's my dream girl. She's everything I ever wanted. I said I wanted a strong, opinionated woman, and then I got it. And I caught myself bitching about how demanding she was, right? Like how passive-aggressive is that, right? Now, Emily can make just as much money or more than me. So when we were lucky enough to have our 2 daughters, we sat down to discuss, like, who's going to scale back their work schedule? And I had all this fear and anxiety bubble up because I realized I tied my self-worth to being the provider for our family. When things would get hard at work, I wouldn't ask her for help. I'd just clam up because I had to be in control, had to figure it out. And she'd ask more questions, and I'd just get defensive because what I was worried about is if I let her in, she'd realize I wasn't man enough for her. Because I'd taken this mask of masculinity, and I put it on, and I was afraid of getting found out. I didn't even know I had the mask on. And I was super motivated here. My parents got divorced. I'm terrified of screwing up my marriage. So I started asking anybody that would talk to me. I'm like, so what do you think it means to be a man? You can imagine the expression like, what? I don't know, right? But what I realized, I'm not the only guy afraid of getting found out. And I also realized I was a bit late to the party. People have been studying the decline of men in America for decades. And you can't pin this all on some jacked up definition of masculinity, but it's a huge part of the problem. Let's just take a look. So this shows the percentage of men and women who are earning degrees in the US since 1966. And as you can see, women are a higher and higher percentage, and men are falling off a cliff. And one part of the story is, rock on, girls. That's awesome, right? I got 2 daughters, game on. But just when the girls were taking off, the guys started to nosedive. I was like, well, what kind of numbers are we talking about here? So if you look at 1999 to 2015, 8.7 million more women earned degrees than men. On the one hand, that's awesome. That's 71 towns the size of Fargo full of college graduates, right? But if you're like me, you're like, but I wonder what's going on under the surface. So I dug into it, and you might imagine nobody agrees on this. Some people say there is no problem. This is what happens when you unshackle women. They just kick butt, right? Seriously. Or maybe it's dad's fault. 1 out of every 3 boys in America grows up without their biological father. Maybe it's ADHD. Boys are 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. Or it could be the schools aren't boy-friendly anymore. Some would say that because you're cutting competition, you're cutting recess, you're pushing literacy into kindergarten, you got more and more boys saying they hate school. Maybe it's testosterone. There's actually some studies that show there's been a 20-year decline in testosterone in men and boys. Or maybe it's just all the distractions. On average, we give boys their first cell phone at the age of 10. They check it about 75 times a day. And then when they get home, there's more distractions. The average boy in America watches 30 hours of television a week, plays video games for 15 hours a week, and checks out porn for 2 hours a week. So you can imagine, you mix all that together, you might impact academic performance. So if they're struggling in school, no surprise, they're struggling in the workplace. In 2010, a study was done of men and women in their 20s. What they found was women had a higher median income than men in 147 of 150 cities. Now, we still have a huge pay gap. Women are not getting paid the same for the same job, and that has to stop. But more women have more degrees, getting more high-paying jobs, which is why the median incomes were so much higher. Women will be the primary breadwinners in over half of American households in our generation. And I don't think we're preparing men for this. Because if they're struggling in school, they're struggling at work, it's going to show up in relationships. So you got a growing number of awesome girls chasing a shrinking number of awesome guys. So the guys are like, why would I settle down? Looking at my options. So the girls, if they're interested in guys, they have a choice between the player or the guy that's intimidated by her awesomeness in his basement, playing video games and checking out porn. Right? And you might think I'm being dramatic. Talk to any girl between 20 and 40 who happens to be interested in guys. Ask her how it's going. Just check my data. So you're like, thanks for the uplifting talk, Sam. Right? So what do? So the good news is, if we pay attention to this, you can do stuff differently. Emily and I are doing great. She actually came. This is an Emily-approved message, right? But there's 2 things I want to leave you with. One, there's no silver bullet here. We're talking about changing the trajectory of a gender. It's not like there's a 3-step plan for this. But there are 2 things I want to leave you with. One, if you've got books you like, organizations doing great stuff, articles, videos, go to #ManTalkFargo and Twitter and share what you know. Because I put everything up there. Every statistic I mentioned today, every video, every book, it's all posted on the hashtag. Go for it. Let's add to the conversation. Second thing I'll leave you with, let's just make it a safe topic. Let's make it okay to talk about gender. That might mean you write out, here's what it means to be an awesome man. You talk to your spouse or your dad or your brother about it. Maybe it means at your next dinner party you show a TED talk on masculinity and you debate it. Why not? Or if you're a guy, maybe you join a men's group at church or you start your own. And I'm not talking about a men's group like, hey, let's go talk about football. I'm talking about a group of buddies that want to talk about marriage and what it means to be a man. Or if you're like Emily and I and you're trying to figure out this new gender reality, bring in the pros. We've been in couples counseling since we were dating. And it's been a game changer. We call them our relationship oil changes. So if we do this right, if we share with each other what we know, if we do our homework, if we start having conversations, there might come a day where the people you love are called into a room someday and they're asked to close their eyes and think of the most awesome man they've ever met. And maybe they think of you, or your husband, or your son. Thanks.